Competitive Pokemon, just like any good competitive game, needs rules to keep things sensible. Without a good rule set, it would be pure chaos, dominated by the most overpowered strategies in the game. Official competitive tournaments have plenty of rules in place to keep things interesting and varied, like the Species Clause, a rule that bans you from having more than one of the same Pokemon on a team. This prevents you from just spamming a single overpowered Pokemon, which wouldn't be very interesting. There's also an item clause. In official events, you can't have more than one of the same item on a team, for a similar reason, to promote variety, and prevent broken items like Focus Sash from being spammed. Sometimes, Pokemon themselves are banned, to allow other Pokemon a chance to shine. Powerful legendaries like Miraidon and Kyogre are outright illegal to use in most official formats, or they are restricted, meaning you can only use a limited number of them on your teams. These rules and bans all serve some sort of purpose, and over in the world of competitive singles, a different set of rules are put in place to allow for as much balance and variety as possible. In competitive singles, different concepts can be broken. For example, the sleep status effect is incredibly overpowered in singles. Since there's only a single Pokemon on each side of the field, sleep can be constantly reapplied by something faster, leaving your opponent unable to act or do anything, barring some good luck. The developers themselves acknowledged this fact, and a sleep clause was put in place all the way back in Pokemon Stadium to prevent this from becoming a problem. The sleep clause means that only one Pokemon can be put to sleep at a time, preventing sleep from being spammed infinitely. Competitive singles is a world where a lot of mechanical exploitation is possible, usually more so than doubles, which can lead to some pretty unique rules from game to game. Pokemon can be overpowered or uncompetitive for weird reasons you wouldn't expect, and sometimes these rules can have collateral damage. Innocent Pokemon caught in the crossfire of a rule that wasn't meant for them. Let's take a look at some of the weirdest bans in competitive Pokemon history. Subscribe to the channel so that we can finally see who was victorious in the Horse Council election. Thank you. It might surprise you to learn that the Pokemon Umbreon was once the cornerstone of a game-breaking strategy in the Generation 2 metagame. And because of Umbreon, a new rule was put in place that changed the format forever. I'm sure that many of you are aware of the game-breaking potential of the move Baton Pass, a move that switches out your Pokemon, maintaining a lot of advantageous effects and passing them on to the new Pokemon. These include stat boosts and effects like Substitute. In most generations, the move itself, Baton Pass, is outright banned from being used because of a lot of game-breaking potential, like infinite Baton Pass change where you stack up every single boost in the game and destroy your opponent without them being able to do anything. But in some early generations, Baton Pass is legal to use. In Generation 2, abilities do not exist yet, and without abilities like Magic Bounce to create game-breaking combos with Baton Pass, the move is considered healthy and not broken. But at some point, a game-breaking strategy was discovered using Baton Pass, not alongside stat boosts, but alongside the move Mean Look. Mean Look is a move that simply traps the enemy, preventing them from switching out. This move is sometimes used alongside Perish Song for a combo that will eliminate the enemy Pokemon. But in the early generations, if used alongside Baton Pass, the trapped Pokemon will stay trapped even when you switch into the new Pokemon. It's a little strange to pass on an effect that is happening to the enemy and maintain that, but that's how it worked. Umbreon was able to take advantage of this by trapping the enemy with Mean Look and then lowering their stats. Usually, Pokemon can just switch out to remove stat stage changes as an easy form of counterplay against debuffs, but if you're trapped in there with Mean Look, you can't do that. Sand Attack is a move that lowers the enemy's accuracy, so Umbreon could trap you in there and repeatedly Sand Attack until your accuracy is so low that you can scarcely hit a single move. If they like, they can also hit you with Charm to lower your attack stat. And from here, Umbreon can click Baton Pass, pass to a teammate, and keep the enemy trapped in there. The Mean Look is still active. Against this helpless enemy, you can switch into a Pokemon that maximizes its stats and turns into a game-ending sweeper. Jolteon was a popular choice, as it could substitute and repeatedly use Growth to maximize its special attack, ignoring all enemy hits because the enemy can't land a single hit. A max special attack Jolteon could just win on the spot after this. This is one of the most uninteractive strategies I've ever seen in competitive Pokemon, completely denying the enemy from doing anything. They're completely helpless as you just combo yourself to a free win. And because of this, a new clause was put in place. Gen 2 OU has a Trap Pass clause, where a Pokemon cannot have the combination of Baton Pass alongside trapping moves, such as Mean Look or Spider Web. This is a rare case of a complex ban, banning the combination of things instead of just individual moves or Pokemon. Umbreon escaped justice this time, but I have not forgotten what he did. But sometimes Pokemon do end up in Poke Prison for their game-breaking crimes. And one of the most famous examples of that is the Pokemon Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet was a problem, mostly because of its ability Shadow Tag, which prevents the opposing Pokemon from switching out without even having to use a move like Mean Look to do so. Wobbuffet can use Encore and then counter or mirror coat to reflect damage back against the enemy and eliminate them guaranteed. Back in Gen 3, Wobbuffet was also a problem because it could create infinite battles. If two Wobbuffets are up against each other and both holding leftovers, they are unable to switch out against each other trapped together. Since Wobbuffet has no attacking moves at all, both of these Wobbuffets will eventually run out of PP and have to use the move Struggle. But in Gen 3, Struggle does not deal a set 25% recoil damage. Instead, it's a percentage of the damage dealt. And because Wobbuffet has such low attack, the recoil damage dealt by Struggle is less than the amount leftovers heals, so both of these Wobbuffets will just sit there struggling forever, never dying, and creating an infinite situation. So Shadow Tag is a banned ability in Generation 3 OU, and even in Gen 3 Ubers, Wobbuffet is not allowed to hold leftovers because of the infinite battle scenario. Since the ability Shadow Tag is banned rather than Wobbuffet itself, the pre-evolved form of Wobbuffet, Wynot, is also a banned Pokemon, illegal to use in Gen 3 OU. Despite having obviously way lower stats, Wynot could be used as basically a second Wobbuffet to get by the species clause, and it can still effectively PP stall enemies with Encore and eliminate them with counter and mirror coat. But I'm sure many of you were aware of this. Wynot has been banned for years, and it's banned in every generation. But did you know there are other examples of this? Of baby Pokemon that are banned from being used despite their terrible stats. Gen 3 happens to have multiple cases of this, not only with Wynot, but with Cacnea. That's right, folks. Cacnea is a banned Pokemon in Generation 3 overused. Cacnea's father, Cacturn, was at a point in time the most controversial Pokemon in Gen 3 OU, and that's all thanks to its ability Sand Veil. Sand Veil is an ability that grants a bonus to your Evasion if Sandstorm is active. And in Gen 3 OU, Sandstorm is active the vast majority of the time because Tyranitar, the #1 Pokemon in the game, permanently sets Sandstorm on the field. Sandveil also has the bonus effect of granting immunity to Sandstorm chip damage, allowing Cacturn to heal with leftovers. Cacturn could abuse this ability to great effect, maximizing its chances to dodge moves with Substitute to buy it some time, Protect to stall and chip heal with leftovers, Leech Seed to chip enemies down while healing itself, and Spikes to make progress while dodging all of your enemy's attacks. Cacturn was extremely uncompetitive because of how unreliable it was to actually beat it. You can clear weather by using effects like Sunny Day or Rain Dance, but doing this not only takes an entire turn, which Cacturn can just spend setting spikes on the field, putting you at a disadvantage, but also Tyranitar can reset the weather back to sand just by switching in, which is much easier to do than you sitting there clicking Sunny Day or Rain Dance. Aerial Ace is a move with perfect accuracy that can always hit Cacturn, but this move has a very low power of only 60, and is usually a terrible choice on just about anything that can learn it. The only Pokemon that really uses this move is Dugtrio, who uses it to be able to trap Heracross and Breloom. And even then, these Sandveil teams would stack multiple Sandveil Pokemon, one of them being Gligar, who takes absolutely no damage from Aerial Ace and can easily shrug it off and do a similar thing, substituting and buying free turns to overwhelm you. And on these Sandveil stacking teams, it was actually pretty good to not only run Cacturn, but to throw Cacnea on there. Much like Wynot, Cacnea is basically worse Cacturn, but that's good enough. Sandveil is so broken that the more Sandveil Pokemon you stack, the higher chance of getting fraudulent dodges that can win you the whole game. And with Cacturn, Cacnea, and Gligar on a team, the odds were really in your favor to just fish for dodges. So Cacnea is rightfully illegal in Generation 3 OU. The ability Sandveil was eventually banned, and since Cacturn and Cacnea only have a single ability, they are illegal to use. But some other Pokemon are also illegal to use because of this. One of them is Sand Slash. This Pokemon was never really used on the Sandvale stacking teams, but it probably could have been. It's a decent bulky ground type with Rapid Spin and Swords Dance and decent enough stats. This one disappoints a lot of people when they try out Gen 3 OU because Sand Slash seems to be a popular fan favorite Pokemon. I don't think this is much of a loss though, because Donphan does exist, who has pretty much the same traits as Sand Slash, as a bulky ground type Rapid Spinner. Sandshrew is illegal to use in Gen 3 OU though, which is kind of funny. Sandshrew is probably the most innocent in all of this. It's not as if you would ever have used this anyway, but it would have been funny to see a full Sandvale team with Cacturne, Cacnea, Gligar, Sandslash, and Sandshrew all coming together to dodge everything and live forever until eternity. I apologize to Sandshrew for this unfortunate turn of events. While these collateral damage bans probably could have been used for evil intent if they did remain legal, there are some other collateral damage bans in Gen 3 that I can't say the same for. In much the same way as Cacturne, Mr. Mime was once public enemy number 1 for the Gen 3 community. Mr. Mime has the ability Soundproof, which grants an immunity to sound-based moves. This does not sound menacing whatsoever, but trust me, it is. In Generation 3, Roar is the primary way to deal with stat pass chains and boost sweepers. A lot of Pokemon learn Roar, and it's a good move to have on your teams for consistency's sake, as a form of counterplay against many of these Pokemon. Soundproof grants an immunity to Roar because it's a sound-based move, and that is a massive deal. Mr. Mime is a Pokemon that was able to use this ability to create a game-breaking combination. If you Baton Pass speed or other stats to Mr. Mime, and the enemy clicks Roar, it will just not work. Mr. Mime can be used to basically preserve stats and create an infinite chain of Baton Pass. Mr. Mime itself has Calm Mind, Barrier, Hypnosis to put the enemy to sleep, and of course Baton Pass to keep the stats moving to something else. And Mr. Mime's stat pass teams were incredibly uninteractive and difficult to play against. Whirlwind is a move that exists, and Whirlwind is able to force out Mr. Mime. But Whirlwind is so rare in Gen 3 OU, with the only real viable Pokemon that can get it being Skarmory and Hariyama. Skarmory is easily targetable by Magneton, and Whirlwind Hariyama was just not common. So Mr. Mime was effectively immune to being phased out. This led to a series of different rule set changes to try and maintain Baton Pass, but tackle the issue of this infinite chain stuff. I have a dedicated video about Mr. Mime and all the problems it caused if you're curious, but at the end of it, Baton Pass restrictions were put in place, and the ability Soundproof was banned from Gen 3 OU. This is an interesting case, because I actually don't think the ability Soundproof is what's broken. It's the combination of Soundproof and Baton Pass that is broken. If you take a look at the Pokemon Cradily, it has the ability Suction Cups, which actually prevents all forms of phasing. It can't be affected by Roar or Whirlwind. But Suction Cups is not bannable. Cradily is fine. It has no great way to take advantage of this ability or do anything. But if Cradily got Baton Pass, that would be a different story. Cradily could be used as a way to keep Baton Pass chains going and create that game-breaking combination. This is the case where they could have done a complex ban. They try to avoid complex bans, but I don't think the Gen 3 community cares. They did it for Gen 2 with Mean Look Pass. It's a minor thing. The collateral damage is pretty minor, but there is in fact some collateral damage, folks. One Pokemon caught in the crossfire is Exploud. Exploud can only get Soundproof, and it is therefore illegal to use. Exploud is not very good, frankly. It's a mono-normal type with pretty mediocre stats, but maybe there's some potential with an Exploud Baton Pass receiver team where you give a bunch of stats to Exploud, it can't be roared out, and then it can do stuff. Its move pool is interesting, with options like Flamethrower and Overheat, and some good physical attacking options too, like Earthquake and Shadow Ball. This would be a fringe strategy at best, but it's a little bit unfortunate that this is just illegal for, in my opinion, undeserved reasons. Exploud was not involved in any of the Mr. Mime controversy, and yet here it is, suffering as a result. The Pokemon Loudred and Whismur are also both illegal to use in Gen 3 OU as a result of this Soundproof ban, which is a little bit funny. There is no way these would ever have been used, so this doesn't really matter, but you can also say that it's undeserved. And my heart goes out to little Timmy, who attempted to use Whismur from his in-game team on the Showdown ladder, only to find that this was actually illegal. Soundproof Electrode is another strategy that is now not available. This could potentially also be a Calm Mind receiver and take advantage of Soundproof for that raw immunity. but not anymore. Electrode is not illegal to use though, because it still has the ability Static, which it can use without breaking any rules. But Soundproof Electrode is a strategy now lost to time. Do you think that these Pokemon deserve to be falsely imprisoned for the greater good? Or should we stage an escape plan to let them out? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.